science, psychology. We do teach a lot of languages at IU, but by far business and accounting, finance, management, marketing, entrepreneurship is most well known at IU through our Kelly School of Business. So that's a little bit about the environment and a little bit about the academics of IU. Thanks for listening. Uh-oh, Alyssa, I think you're muted.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry. So that was a little bit about all of our institutions, where they're located, some of the academic portions, and what each one of those has to offer. And we just talked a little bit about how we're all different. Something that we all have in common, and that we are going to be talking primarily about today, is athletics and the division of athletics, the association of athletics that all of our universities participate in. So the NCAA is an association. It stands for the National Collegiate Athletic Association. And this is what regulates student athletes from over 1,000 different institutions all over North America. Division I is the highest division of athletics within that association, and all three of our universities have a variety of different Division I sports within the NCAA. The headquarters of the NCAA is actually in Indiana, but you can see that there is NCAA institutions all over the United States, and those are some of the big names that you see on the screen. So I am going to now talk a little bit about what having NCAA Division I sports means, or what the impact of that is on Rutgers campus. So first, a fun fact is that Rutgers is actually the birthplace of college football. You may or may not know that college football is really, really heavily, intensely followed in the United States. There's it brings a lot of different fans and energy around this college level sport, but Rutgers is actually where the first game ever took place. So in 1869, Rutgers played against Princeton University, which you also might have heard of, and Rutgers won. So we kicked it off right, and we won. We played in and won the first ever college football. Some of the other things you see on my slide are some notable championships and some notable athletes that have played for Rutgers teams and then went on to big and great things. We have Carly Lloyd, who's on the United States women's national soccer team, and she is a two-time Olympic gold medalist. So it's really exciting. Also, not only to watch college sports, but to see alum from your college now playing at an even higher level. The Vivian C. Stringer is the head coach of the women's basketball team at Rutgers. She recently got her 1,000th win with the team. She's really well known in the United States for women's basketball. I actually attended her basketball camp a few times when I was growing up. And then that's kind of where my basketball career ended, because I was not cut out for it, because it is so intense, but she's amazing. And then we have some other wrestling is really competitive and big on our campus. We even have some NFL players. So even when you're at Rutgers, even if you're not competing on the Division I athletic teams, which, I didn't even make it past the basketball camp, so I didn't make it to high school or college sports, but it is still really, really fun, and it's just a great time supporting not only your team, but also the alum of those teams that go on to different national teams and things like that. So it's a really, really fun, energetic, passionate environment to be a part of. So I will now, IU will talk a little bit about what this means on their campus.
So to talk about like the impact of athletics on at least Indiana University's campus, just maybe three things about the campus itself, the community, and then the connection that athletics offers. So when it comes to campus and infrastructure, you see the picture in the top left corner of your screen. That's actually our Hamilton Luger School of Global and International Studies. That's where all of our languages are taught, where all of our international law is taught. That building holds more faculty members than Georgetown and American universities programs combined. It's over 300 faculty members. Half of that building's cost were funded by our television contract with our sports teams. So that building cost $53 million, and half of it was funded by our athletics department. So not that it happens all the time, but many times athletics programs are asked to give a little bit back to the university to assist students who maybe will never go to a basketball game or a football game, but it's assisting in the campus environment and it's assisting in your academics as well. The other thing I was going to mention is about community. So you see in the top right-hand corner and in the bottom left-hand corner, events focused around any of the big sporting events. So the top right is tailgating in football, which happens when there's not a pandemic happening, and every Saturday before a football game at home, alumni, people who graduated from the university years ago will come back, and everybody will all hang out, have a good time, eat food before they go into the football game. So it's a time to connect with your current friends at college, as well as the many other people who attended in years past. Speaking of those people who attended in years past, in the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see a basketball game. That's Mark Cuban, who's on Shark Tank and who is an entrepreneur. He went to IU and got his undergraduate degree in business at Indiana University, and he returns to connect a lot of times around these sporting events. So it builds a campus, it builds community, and also builds connections. So in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see just a few of the folks who are currently playing in the NBA who played basketball at Indiana University. So even as you're watching NBA or you're watching the NFL or you're watching other professional sports like the Olympics, you'll see players who attended the university where you also attended. So there's this connection and this community that exists through the events themselves on the day, but then well after you graduate, as you see kind of echoes and traces of your university in professional sports. So those are just the three things that I wanted to bring up about how it impacts IU's campus.
Yes, and I kind of wanted to branch off of that as well and really emphasize that attending a university that has such high level athletics is really, it not only extends to the campus community, but the greater community in general. So for example, this year, our football team will be playing, but it will be there won't be people watching the game. So what they've done instead is they have created this way that each a fan of the football team can have a picture of themselves made into a cutout that will then sit in a chair in the TCF Bank Stadium on our campus. So students and community members can attend the football games virtually, which I think is really, really fun. It's $25 for students and $50 for general fans. And so a lot of people will do that so that they can show their support, not only students showing their support, but the community showing their support. And we also are really, our mascot is Goldie Gopher. You can see him in that picture with Lindsay Wallen at the center of your screen. People love Goldie. Wherever he goes, he gets a lot of attention. And actually, he is quite an amazing dancer. He has won the National Mascot Championship 4 times since 2011. So we're really proud of Goldie too. But in terms of our teams, we have 23 Division I sports teams, and there are about 1,000 student athletes. We're probably best known in women's sports for softball and volleyball, and the men's teams, hockey, basketball, and baseball. And you'll see some of the other more well-known graduates of our institution. Lindsay Wallen is the head coach for the University of Minnesota women's basketball team. She was a point guard for the Connecticut Sun in the women's NBA, and then a former Olympic gold medalist. Ryan Saunders is now the head coach for the Minnesota Timberwolves, also an NBA team. David Plummer in the lower left won a bronze and a gold in swimming for the U.S. team. And then Amanda Kessel also won silver and gold for ice hockey in the Olympics. So it's a really high caliber of athlete that attends an institution like University of Minnesota, Rutgers, and Indiana University.
Okay, perfect. So that's a little bit about our universities, a little bit about how athletics impacts. Before we jump into the details, we wanted to get a sense of if you knew what the scope of athletics were like in the United States, especially the largest sport that we accommodate, which is American football, not soccer, American football here in the United States. So if you had to guess, and you feel free to throw this in the chat if you feel like it, or just put it in the back of your mind, how many people do you think the US's largest football stadium holds? In the US, their options are 233,000, 107,000, 57,000, or 28,000. I don't know what your largest stadium in Brazil is. Anyway, maybe it'll be something around there. We have a few people who believe it's B. Someone thinks it's A, over 230,000. The correct answer is, drumroll please, letter B. You guys had it going on. It's the Big House in Michigan. So it's Ann Arbor, Michigan, the home of the Michigan Wolverines, in our athletic conference. It holds 107,000 people. I know I feel like a few of your football stadiums, while their capacity is at what, 60 or 70,000, I think you guys might pack a few more people into your football stadiums, but we won't tell any of the authorities about that. But yeah, our stadiums are large, comparable for sure.
Okay, so as you are discovering different paths to either play athletics or hear about things that are related to athletics in the United States, you'll come across a couple different governing bodies. So probably the largest one is the NCAA, which all of our universities are part of. And so that's broken down into different divisions. Division I and Division II are allowed to give athletic scholarships, but Division III does not. And some of the smaller ones are the NAIA, which stands for the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics. So these are usually smaller schools with fewer sports available, and not every state has an NAIA institution. I don't think that there's one in Minnesota or New Jersey, but Indiana has, some are Indiana Tech, Grace College, Bethel College, generally smaller institutions. And then the unique thing about the NJCAA, which is the National Junior College Athletics Association, is that you would start with attending a university for 2 years, and then you would transfer to a 4-year institution. So that kind of gives you a different understanding of the different governing bodies that you'll see as you do your research.
Okay, we have another kind of poll question for you guys. And the question is, you'll see these 4 answers here. Which of these is not an NCAA scholarship eligible sport? So there are a ton of different sports that are NCAA eligible for scholarships. I put a Quidditch picture on this slide to show you this just attests to the wide variety of sports at universities. Rutgers does have a Quidditch team. It's not NCAA approved, however, but out of these 4, which one do you think is not eligible for a sports scholarship? All right, we got all the answers. Well, we got all of them. We got A's, B's, C's, D's. So I will just, without further ado, show you that it is actually rugby. So out of all of those, even rifling is a winter sport that is NCAA eligible for scholarships. You will see these different sports depending on what time of the year it is. The fall sports for women and men, the winter sports for women and men, spring sports. And then the column on the farthest right, the emerging sports, those are not currently eligible for any scholarships. However, they are on the emerging sports list. So they are being looked at, being watched, being considered. So maybe in the future, rugby, equestrian riding, which is horseback riding, and triathlon will be eligible. Maybe Quidditch will then be on the emerging sports list. So maybe these will emerge in some time. But rugby is the one that is not at this time eligible.
And I think we might have lost Seth, but hopefully he will come back on. We wanted to show you sort of a breakdown of what the different percentages are of international students who come to the United States to participate in Division I athletics. So you'll see that of all of the athletes, that about 12% are international, and the most are coming from Canada, United Kingdom, and it's nice to see that Brazil is on there too, with 249 student athletes in the NCAA division. So good job, Brazil. So this is also, this slide will give you some statistics about the chances and your probability of competing. And so we don't mean this to crush your dreams, or it's meant to be more of a reality check. And you can see, these are the statistics for the men's sports. And so you can see that if you play, like, let's look at soccer, if you play or football, as you would call it, you would have a 1.3% chance of playing at the Division I level. So it's just important to keep in mind that it's very, very competitive. I think you'd have probably a better chance if you played ice hockey. I think that was the one that had the higher number. But let's go to the next slide and we'll look at the statistics for the women's sports as well. So similar here. Again, we'll look at soccer for women. It's a 2.4%. And then for ice hockey, it's almost 9%. So it will really depend on the sport that you're interested in and the level too. If you're applying to Division I, Division II, or a Division III institution. And you can find these statistics too on the NCAA website. So I think we have a quiz coming up. Yes. We do. So now we've shown you the percentage of coming from high school to collegiate level or university level. What do you think the percentage, let's use basketball as an example. What percentage of NCAA Division I men's basketball players go on to play in the NBA? Do you think it's A, 1.2%, B, 9.8%, C, 15.4%, or D, 26.7? Okay, I see lots of, yeah, you guys are kind of all guessing for all the different ones. I see a couple A's, a couple.
Got all of the answers.
Yeah, we got all of them. Okay, so the answer is, oh, sorry, 1.2%. So it's a very, very elite group of people who go on to play professional sports, even from the NCAA teams. So. Yeah, I wonder if we've gotten Seth back yet.
I don't think that we do. However, we can
just see him here.
Yeah, we'll continue.
Yeah. So for the NCAA, there is a lot of different eligibility criteria that students will have to meet and complete before they are even eligible to apply and play at this level. So here you can see some of those. So you need to have your secondary school, you have to have completed that. And you had to have completed that in 4 years or less. So not only does the student need to complete their high school program or their secondary school program, but they have to do it within a certain time frame. There is also some specific core courses that students will have had to complete, and you can find all of this information on the NCAA website. And then also the GPA. So you have to have met some different academic requirements in terms of your GPA in your secondary or high school, and then also the score requirements on the SAT or ACT. However, this year, as you may know, because of the global pandemic, a lot of schools are going test optional. There have been a lot of different cancellations for the SAT and the ACT and different standardized tests. So I believe, Amy, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the NCAA is waiving this score requirement for this year. However, I don't think that will stand past this year once, hopefully once everything gets up and running again. But this year they are willing to waive the SAT or ACT requirements if students are not able to provide that.
Yeah, I think that is correct, Alyssa, what you're saying, that they are waiving it this year.
And then also, so, students, you think you're qualified, you met all that criteria, you will also have to be officially registered. This you can do online at this website here. I believe there is a small fee or a fee, I don't know how big or small it is, to be honest, in order to register. There are some steps you have to go through, but students who are looking to play at that level not only need to meet those qualifications, but then also need to be officially registered, which is an online process. So those scholarships that I'm sure you are really curious about, there's two different ones that students can potentially be offered after being chosen to play the sports at this level. So there is full scholarships that are offered, which has all of those expenses, tuition and fees, room and board, books. So that's basically a full ride. And then there are some partial scholarships as well. That is just the cost of tuition and fees. However, I want to point out that not every athlete that makes the team to play at the Division I level or any of the levels that give out full or partial scholarships, not every athlete will receive one. So not all students can expect to receive a scholarship, even if they are chosen to play on these teams. But a lot of students do get these scholarships, and their contract for those is 1 year, but they are renewable. And then depending on that, can go for 4 years or not, but nothing is guaranteed, of course. And so now this is the 3 really most common pathways that students find themselves not only getting on these Division I NCAA athletic college teams, but also the 3 most common pathways that students will receive a scholarship on these teams. So I want to highlight that this journey typically begins fairly early in a student's high school career. So it doesn't normally go, it's senior year, you're about to graduate, and then you decide you want to play on a team, and then you're on a team. You're typically working with universities, or at least having these thoughts a little bit earlier on in your high school years. So really the earlier the better, but however, there is some limitations on how much the coaches can actually contact students when until they're at a certain point in their high school years. So the number 1 pathway is called being scouted, and this is really summed up by the phrase, you don't call them, they call you. So this is when the athletic departments at the university identifies the talent or the athlete in which they, are really interested in having try out or having on their team. And these scouting services are provided by the NCAA. So these are all, approved. This is an approved team of people that identify talent in different athletes, and then they will call you. They reach out to you. They're interested in having you participate on the team. So that's number one. And then number two, which we will also get into in the next slide, but is working with an agent. So this is an agent is a person that assists athletes in finding their place and their home, their sports team at a university. So they are really like the middleman between the athlete and the different university teams. However, this is usually an independent agent, and a student will pay this person for their work. So you really want to make sure we're going to go over some questions, but you want to do some investigating before you just hand your money over to these people that say they're going to help you be that middleman between you and the team. And then the third one is where the student is contacting universities. So that is more like the grind. You are the one that is making the calls, sending the emails, putting your feelers out there, sending your footage. And this is definitely a lot harder. A lot of the times, you'll get a lot of crickets, nobody responding. However, this is also a third pathway that students can find themselves getting in contact to hopefully get an opportunity to play on these teams.
Alyssa, would you like me to take this one?
Yes, please.
Yes. You can see there's a picture of Indiana University there. So this was Seth's slide to present, but I will try to do it justice. So before you engage with any sports agent, you really want to do your research to find out what their reputation is. And these are some sample questions. How long have they been an agent? Can they provide references to you of other student athletes that they have successfully worked with? And then how do they pay for their services? Like, are they charging the university? Are they charging the families? Who's the client? Who is the sports agent neutral and really following what you want to do and where you want to go? Or are they just recruiting for one or two universities? That's important to know. Will they give you information about the past athletes that they worked with? And what guarantees do they offer you? If they are going to charge you a fee and you don't find a place, what will happen? How much do they charge? And what do they do with your money? And sometimes if you decide maybe that you are wanting to, say you get a place at a university on a Division I team, and you decide it's not the best place for you and you want to transfer, would they help you with that? And that's an important question to ask. So just be very careful and do your research about the different sports agents that are available out there. Okay, and then if you want to take the third route, which is taking it into your own hands and contacting the universities directly, we have a couple of tips for you. So an important thing to remember is that Division I universities are looking for a good fit in terms of academics and in terms of athletics. So you still have to be academically strong and solid to get a place. The sports, it's about your academics as well. So to promote yourself, what you could do is you could create a athletic resume or a CV. And that, if you did a paper form type resume, then you this is really good for sports where it's a specific time, like swimming or track, and you can say your times. But you might want to consider an online CV, maybe on a Google Drive, that it can include a video if it's a team sport where you have to demonstrate that you have like intuition or skill with a particular part of the sport. So depending on the sport that you are interested in, might help you determine which type would be better for you. You might want to think about some athletic camps. Alyssa was talking earlier about her basketball camp. But if you go to a camp at a particular institution so that you can get exposure to the other players and to the coaches, you might also want to see if there will be any scouts or recruiters that come to that camp so that you can know who you will be getting exposure to. So, and this will give you extra exposure as an athlete. And some other websites that you can research and look at. Oh, go back. Can you go back? Sorry. Are berecruited.com and athleticscholarships.net right there. And then you would directly contact the athletic coordinators or the coaches, either by email or sometimes on the university website, there will be a recruit form. That's what we use at the University of Minnesota, where you go to the athletics website and it asks a lot of information about you. And then if the coaches are interested in recruiting you, then they will respond. But like Alyssa said, if it's very competitive, and if they're not particularly interested in recruiting you for the team, then you might want to look at some other different schools or some smaller divisions and that type of thing. So, okay, now this next slide will have quite a few resources for you to get more information about the NCAA, those other two divisions that we were talking about, and also start looking for athletic scholarships and college sports scholarships. So I think that's all we wanted to say about that slide. Yeah, and so I think we'll open it up for questions. That's a very brief overview. We were trying to really emphasize that even if you are not a student athlete, it's a big part of a Division I institution experience. So you can be a cheerleader and cheer on your teams if they win or they lose, and show your school spirit. And we hope that this was helpful to you, at least as you get started on your journey. So we open it up for questions.
If you all want to send questions on the chat, I can read them, or if you also want to turn on your mics and just go ahead and ask, that would be fine, I think. Can I start off with a question though? You did mention recruiting. Do the recruiters in your universities do international recruitment? Do they actually come to countries to recruit?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think at Minnesota, it really depends on the sport, because we have about, I think I said about 1,000, we have about 1,000 student athletes, and there is actually a specific student group for international student athletes, and they're from all over the world. And so it really depends on the coach's network, where they're connected to where they will go. I know we have some South African athletes, some Central American athletes, and so forth. So they do, but it's very specific to their sport and their network.
Yeah, I think the same for Rutgers. However, I would think the most helpful thing for an international student would be try to participate in some camps and clinics and workshops at within the United States, and especially at the universities.
Okay, thank you. So we have a question from Juliana. What is the maximum age to be eligible in the NCAA?
Yeah, I answered that one in the chat below. Okay. That there's no set age limit for the athletes. However, that Division I athletes are required to enroll 1 calendar year after high school graduation. So there's no direct age limit. However, there is a time frame in terms of schooling that students will have to complete that.
So there's a question from Paula. What do you mean that the university is interested in the applicant. You will schedule an interview and ask for an early brief. I'm not sure what that question.
I wonder if that has to do with like your application, because you will, even if you're being recruited by a coach, you still do need to go through the application and admissions process. So it's not 100% guaranteed, because you still have to be obviously graduating and doing well in your classes. So I think that if you're talking about connecting with the coach will probably want to talk with you personally once they're allowed to, according to NCAA rules. But I'm not exactly sure what you mean by early read. Maybe you could say more about that.
Paula, maybe you can clarify the question. We have a question from Thiago. What do you guys consider a strong application from an international student athlete?
Well, I think, like Amy mentioned, it's kind of a two-part thing here. A lot of the international student athletes are, and this kind of goes into the next question that we have below that about, as an international student, how would the university know that you're good enough to be on the team and get a scholarship? So by those, I can go back. But by these numbers, you can see how small this is just the reality of it. As Amy said, not a dream crusher, but maybe even some motivation. But there is a very small percentage of students from anywhere, any high school student that can compete at these Division I levels, and then also some of the Division II and III levels. So each university will have their own separate academic criteria that the student will have to meet. I know for Rutgers, I can send you some of our admissions profiles and things like that. So that can really help you see if you will be a good fit for the university academically. So not only do you have to be an outstanding athlete, probably already competing at a very high level within your country, you will also have to be strong academically. So it goes hand in hand there. But each university will have their own set of academic criteria and admissions information for at least the academic part of that. Amy, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you covered that really, really well, Alyssa. I saw in the chat box there was also a question about how would the university know that you're good enough to get a scholarship? And that really comes back to the talking directly with the coach. The coach might want you to send some video footage of whatever sport you're in. They might want to do an interview with you or talk to you over email or on the phone. Each coach will kind of have their own way of doing that. But I would say that if you are doing a sport like if you're doing soccer or another team sport, it probably would be helpful for you to make sure that you have some video footage of you and your performance, so that you can create that digital resume or digital CV to make it easier for the coach to see your abilities as an athlete.
We have a question from Fernanda. Does it make a student difference if the student travels to introduce themselves in person to the coach in the first year of high school?
What I would recommend is that make sure that you contact the athletic department first before you schedule any type of trip, because they may or may not be open to that. I think it would really depend. So I'm not a super, like, I don't know all of the rules about coach contact with student athletes. There may be some limitations according to the NCAA, which we could probably do a little bit of research and find out and get back.
Yeah, I just sent
to
the
the
chat. I just sent a
Oh, okay, great.
page in the chat from the NCAA website. So all of these rules and regulations and different things like that can be found on the NCAA website very easily. So it'll probably be helpful to you to do a little bit of your own research for some of those specifics.
Okay. I also have another question. You were mentioning in the beginning of the presentation that some students start off in community colleges, playing sports in community colleges. When they transfer, is it normal for them to still stay in sports in the university that they transferred to, or is that something that's not as common?
So
yeah, go ahead, Alyssa.
no, I was just going to clarify the question. Can you just repeat the question, please?
Sure. So you were mentioning community colleges, and that is one of the strategies that we definitely tell a lot of students that's a good idea for them. We call it abrir portas, so it like opens doors for students, right, when they start in community colleges. Mm-hmm. And they do have the opportunity to play sports in the community colleges when they start, but is it normal for when they transfer to the universities that they get recruited and they are in the NCAA teams or not? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not sure I know the statistic on that, to be honest. Do you know, Alyssa?
I'm not sure either. I think that I'm sure that it's not impossible. I'm not sure how common it is, however, for somebody to play at the community college level and then jump all the way to the caliber of a Division I NCAA sports team. So I'm not entirely sure on that either. But I mean, community college is a great general pathway for students to get to a four-year university. However, I'm just not sure specifically about, being on that NCAA Division I athletic team. But it's a great pathway for students who are, looking to study at a four-year university. Starting off in a community college in the United States is a really popular option. So.
We have a question from Tiago. So if we already finished high school a couple of years ago and did not enroll one calendar year after that, we are not eligible for NCAA anymore?
Yes, I believe that is correct. Yeah, so.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, my.
Okay, we have a question from Emmanuel. Whoever signed a gap year and is applying this year can apply for athletic scholarships. So whoever I think is on a gap year this year, can we apply for athletic scholarships if you're on a gap year?
You can certainly contact the coach. They may already have filled all of their slots for available spaces for the next year, but it doesn't hurt to ask. But I think, like Alyssa was saying, that the recruiting process usually starts fairly a few years earlier than the high school graduation. So there is sometimes the option to walk on to a team, but what that means is that you don't have an athletic scholarship, you come to the university and you are able to play if they have a space available for you. But I think that the option of getting a athletic scholarships for being a walk-on is not very high.
And also with the athletic scholarships, it's not something that you apply for so much as it is offered to you secondary to already gaining a space on the team. Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any final questions? Okay, I'll just give then a quick thank you in Portuguese and I'll bring it back to you.
Thank you.
Então, muito obrigada, gente, por ter participado hoje. Como eu falei, a gente está disponível para vocês no EducationUSA, qualquer dúvida que vocês tiverem com a candidatura, se vocês precisarem de ajuda, se tiverem alguma dúvida sobre a apresentação de hoje, podem entrar em contato diretamente com a EducationUSA ou com as representantes que falaram aqui e deram a palestra hoje. Fiquem de olho também na nossa agenda de eventos para ver quais eventos a gente vai ter aí ao longo das semanas, que tem bastante coisa agendada. E obrigada por participarem. Okay, thank you, Amy and Melissa, and Seth is not here, but thank you to him as well for this great presentation. I see you're adding your emails there, então, gente, os e-mails delas estão disponíveis no chat para vocês também. And yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. It was very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much. We're happy to be here with you today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.